Welcome to the Vibrant Visibility Podcast. Being visible as a soul-led business owner isn't just about the practical strategies, marketing tips, and tech systems. It's also about the internal systems, the safety of your nervous system, the somatic connection, and the embodiment of being a badass CEO that will support you in all of the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. And I'm here to share all of that with you on this show. I'm your host, Shawnee Arsenault, a registered nurse turned visibility coach and business mentor for heart-centered coaches and healers. I created a six-figure coaching practice in my first year of business and scaled to multiple six figures my second year, all in the middle of getting pregnant with my first baby and becoming a new mama. If I can do this entrepreneurship thing, I know you can too. If you're ready to learn how to be a CEO in a way that feels aligned with your heart, become a lighthouse for the people that you're meant to serve, feel free to authentically express yourself and be a magnet for success, and grow your coaching business in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling, I can't wait to be in your ear along for the ride. Welcome back to the podcast. All right, guys, I'm just going to jump right on into it because this topic I'm feeling a little fiery about. There is likely a version of you that is soft, kind, compassionate, heart-centered, safe, agreeable, and maybe a little scared as well of being too pushy, being too bold, maybe coming off as aggressive or salesy or weird. And that version of you is incredible. That part of you is incredible. We need that if we're going to be doing heart-led work with clients and actually helping people in a powerful, meaningful way. However, that's likely not the version of you that's closing the sales. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, like the difference between being the people-pleasy coach and the bold and brave coach, the spicier coach, right? The version of you who keeps it nice on sales calls, and then the version who actually gets clients, who actually empowers people to say yes from a place of, I want to do this work, I am invested, and not from a place of trying to convince people. Right. So that's what we're going to explore in today's episode. Like, I want to talk about the pattern that I see all the time with heart-led coaches, that fear of being too bold, of stepping on people's toes, that fear of being too direct, too spicy, especially when it's time to talk about money, especially whenever it's time to invite someone into your offer and call them forward. So a few things that we're going to probably hit today. We'll talk about what happens whenever you default to the people-pleasy way of coaching. I also want to share with you some mindset shifts, some frameworks to help you reclaim that spicier, bolder version of you, because I feel like every coach has it. Every person who willingly decides to leave their career, whatever career they've built, and become an entrepreneur, you have a little edgy, spicy side to you that we just need to awaken, okay? We just need to get to know that part of you a little bit better and find ways to support clients and potential clients through objections, through resistance, without being offensive and without being aggressive. You know, there's a way to do it so that it's honest, it's respectful, and it's rooted in integrity. And if you are someone who knows that visibility, that being more bold, that nervous system safety are kind of like your next edges, get on the wait list for my 6-month mastermind Vibrant Visibility. That's exactly the kind of work that we dive into there. But let's first talk about, okay, who is the people-pleasy coach? We're going to kind of define both of these different types of coaches, the people-pleasy and then the bold and brave. The people-pleasy coach. Some of the defining traits of a people-pleasy coach. One, you overexplain a lot. Okay, you over-explain, you over-coach. It's like whenever you're coaching your clients or your potential clients, whenever you're on a coaching call, you feel like you have to handhold them to get to the answer. You're giving away a lot. And I'm not just naming all of these traits trying to call you out. Like I've been the people-pleasy coach. I'm speaking from personal experience as well. So anyways, another defining trait of a people-pleasy coach is to avoid navigating direct objections, like just kind of skimming over it, being like, for example, if you have a potential client that you are on a call with and they say, I can't afford coaching right now because, we're trying to save for a new car. Our car just broke down and we're trying to save for a new car. or we're about to move across the country, so we're trying to save for that. Like having something that they're trying to save for, if we're talking about a money objection, and the people pleasy coach will be like, yeah, I totally hear you. That makes a lot of sense. And then not challenge it at all, not call them forward and just kind of skim over it instead of digging a little bit deeper and getting more curious about it. A lot of times, those objections on the surface are an indication that something deeper might be going on. They also avoid uncomfortable silences. So silence is super, super uncomfortable for the people pleasy coach because then that's when your brain starts to go into all of these spirals of what are they thinking? Why are they not talking? Did I say something that offended them? Am I making them uncomfortable? Right? Like those thoughts start to swirl around in your head whenever there are silences. If you're more so embodying the people pleasy coach and not the bold and brave coach. The people pleasy coach also feels responsible for making the other person feel good, right? Even at the expense of the truth. So in the beginning of my coaching practice, I used to always do this. I used to always, if I could see my client or potential client on the other end get really uncomfortable, I would immediately try to backtrack and try to soften whatever I just said that made them uncomfortable. Even though logically I knew that it wasn't actually me that was making them uncomfortable, it was the idea that I called forward. It was maybe the resistance that I was calling out in a loving way. But my nervous system was very aware that I didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings. I didn't want to seem overly pushy. I didn't want to be offensive. I didn't want to seem aggressive or whatever. So I felt responsible to take what that person was experiencing, if it wasn't good, and make it better. I had this fixing mentality. And then another defining trait I can think of is like you are energetically chasing the yes instead of standing rooted in the truth. That person's truth might be, this is not in alignment for me right now. And that is completely okay. But the people pleasy coach kind of wants to chase the yes. Sometimes that looks like our potential clients being really excited about doing this work, but it also means that they might not be able to pay their rent the next month. And that truth means I, as the coach, don't want to put them in a situation like that and so I'm constantly empowering them to be like, I hear how excited you are about this work. I hear that. And if it's going to put you in a really bad position, there's also no pressure to do that here. So a couple of examples that might paint this picture of times where you may have been leaning more into the people pleasy coach category. Think about if you've ever ended a proposal call with, oh, no worries at all. I totally get it, when you didn't actually mean that. If there were more questions that you had, if you were curious about certain things that they said, certain objections that they brought up, and you didn't dive into those, and instead you kind of defaulted to, oh, no worries at all. Yeah, I totally get it. I have on multiple occasions. So again, I'm not saying all of this just to call you guys out, but these are things that I've done and I've experienced. Another example that comes to mind is like if you've ever coached your heart out on a free call, like you poured so much into that free call, and then they feel so good after that free call that they're like, I'm good now. Like you realize later that you actually gave them everything that they needed to walk away. Another example is over explaining your offers. So if you are on a sales call with someone and you finally get to the part where you're talking about your offers, you say your price and then you start freaking out because maybe you charge $5,000. Maybe you charge a really uncomfortable amount for this person. And then you immediately go into over explaining. And the reason it's priced that way is because I offer this, this, and this, or I have all of these extra resources, or blah, 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 blah. Like, if you find yourself doing that, that's like that people pleasy coach coming out. I used to do this all the time whenever I was first kind of getting into the rhythm of doing sales calls and navigating objections and stuff like that. I also used to do this with my paying clients as well. Like if they started to bring up resistance around something that I suggested, or if they would come across challenges, the same challenges over and over again in their business, in their life, and whatever I was coaching around, I would hold back on calling them out because I was scared that I was going to be seen as like a bitch or insensitive. I didn't want to seem too pushy and I didn't want to push their buttons too hard, right? And this version of you likely developed to protect connection, right? Maybe somewhere along the way, you got the message that being too bold or stating your opinion or calling people out, holding people accountable equals being rejected. right? Many of us learned to kind of read the emotional room before we ever learned to read, right? And that's a nervous system survival response that's programmed into us from a very, very early age. And so I want you to keep that in mind whenever you start to have some of those behaviors come up in calls with people, especially sales calls, right? I want you to think about what your people pleasy coach voice sounds like. And it doesn't even have to just be the words that you use. It can be the inflections in your voice, right? I could sit here and say, no pressure versus, hey, no pressure at all, right? Like those are, if you guys could hear the two different energies of those exact same sentences, one was very people pleasy, like trying to appease, trying to make somebody else feel comfortable, versus the other one was stating very boldly, very clearly, hey, there's no pressure at all. I'm unattached, right? This decision is on you, not me. And I want you to also think about what situations, this might be something really nice to journal about afterwards, but what situations activate that people pleasy coach the most, right? Is it money objections? Is it that silent moment after you talk about your offer and you state your price? Now, if we're talking about clients that are already in your programs and have already paid you, maybe it's them going through a repetitive challenge over and over again. That might activate that people pleasy coach version of you to want to fix their problem, to want to handhold them through to get to the answer instead of witnessing them, being in it with them, boldly reflecting back what you see as the coach and allowing them to kind of form their own pathway to the answer. So that's the people pleasy coach. Now let's meet the spicy, bold, brave coach. So some defining traits of the bold and brave coach are, you are bold, meaning you're like confident, but you're not aggressive. So kind of like with that voice inflection example that I used earlier of like the no pressure versus, hey, no pressure. So, an example similar to that, that illustrates bold versus aggressiveness. I once told a client, it sounds like you're relying on the support that you hire to come up with all the answers for you, right? And the way that I said it was exactly like that. Like, can I reflect something back to you? It sounds like you're relying a lot on the support that you hire to solve your problems, to solve the challenges that you're facing. Whereas I could say it like, okay, it sounds like you are relying on the container to solve your problems. Like, that's bitchy. To me. There's a bold way to say something, and you can say it with a lot of compassion, with a lot of love for that person, or you could say it with a little bit of sassiness and kind of like rudeness, right? Another defining trait of the bold and brave coach is that you name what's happening in the room very lovingly, very clearly. And so, one of the things that I always love to use with my clients and even with my potential clients, if I'm on a sales call with them, is like, can I reflect back to you something that I'm seeing? I also use this phrase a lot. You can totally tell me if I'm off base here, but this is what I'm getting from what you just said. And then I go into whatever spicy take I had. I always like to tell people to ask permission. If they're going to be bolder with what they say to their clients or potential clients, if they're going to be a little bit spicy, I always default to if it feels uncomfortable for you to be spicy with someone, to call somebody forward, to call them out, ask permission, right? You can never go wrong with asking for permission. Hey, I'm about to say something that might hit a nerve here. And so I completely want to honor that if it does kind of activate you a little bit. Are you okay if I share? It kind of braces them for that impact, knowing that it's coming from a loving place, right? You're not just like hitting them with a truth bomb and then like almost giving them whiplash with it. You are letting them prepare themselves internally to feel the discomfort. And so that's a really compassionate way to hold someone through something like that. Another defining trait of a bold and brave coach is they invite discomfort, right? You're not inviting discomfort as a punishment. You are inviting discomfort as a catalyst for change. So, a lot of times, whenever I notice that a client of mine is feeling really uncomfortable about something that I challenge them to do, I'll take a little pause and I'll ask them, how is it feeling for you to sit with that? How is it feeling for you to hear me challenge you to do this? Like, I can tell you're a little bit uncomfortable. I can tell this is an edge for you. Tell me what's going on. And then a brave and bold coach also trusts themselves to say what needs to be said without controlling how it's received. So it's really not even so much the words that you use. Like, yes, language is very important, but it's also the energy with which you say it and trusting that your loving energy that you have for your clients or potential clients, your compassion, your care is going to shine through no matter what you say. Right? You can say something and sound like a total bitch. And then you can also say the same exact thing, but it comes off as very loving, very thoughtful. Being bold and brave in your coaching doesn't mean you're being reckless. It doesn't mean you're being mean. It means you are grounded. It means you're being honest and you're leading with that honesty. You're leading with truth and you're unattached to whether someone approves or disapproves of the things that you say, of the way that you coach, the way that you hold them through it. So, like, let's give a real time example of this. Imagine you are on a sales call and you hear a potential client say, I don't have that much in the bank, right? Or that would drain my savings. I would have to put that on a credit card. The people pleasy coach would backpedal immediately, right? Yeah, I totally get that. And then leave it alone and never revisit it. The bold and brave coach might say, I completely hear you. Not many people have a budget for coaching. Can I ask a question that might feel a little bit spicy? So I hope you don't take it the wrong way. And if they say yes, if they give you permission, the bold and brave coach might ask something like, I'm curious why you scheduled this call. Or, if that feels a little edgy for you, you could also say something like, I hear you that money is a concern. If we're taking the money thing off of the table, would this work be worth it to you to get you X, Y, and Z, right? List off the results that they want. And if it is worth it to them, that's when you this is the coaching part of it, right? This is when you guide them like, okay, you've said that this is work that you really want to do, that you're invested in it. And so what would it feel like to find a way to make this work, even if it's not with me, right? To find a way to do this kind of work and prioritize it the way that you prioritize other things. You're always wanting to reflect back to them what you're seeing. If you truly are seeing someone who is struggling financially and it would put them in a really bad spot to invest in coaching, absolutely, you don't have to challenge their objection. But I would listen to your intuition here. If your intuition is telling you this is not in alignment for them, then don't press it, right? Don't continue to challenge. And I would also really be open to exploring if that objection actually means something else for them. Right? Once you feel clear on that, once you're pretty certain that this doesn't mean anything else, it really is just about the ability to afford, you can absolutely move on, but you won't know unless you explore. And so we're not trying to have a perfect script for how we navigate through some of those objections, but we do want to stay grounded ourselves while someone else is kind of in their stuff, right? When their brains are spiraling and going to all of these things, we want to stay grounded in what the truth is. And that's part of the reason why people pay us for coaching is because whenever our clients' nervous systems are all out of whack and they're in survival mode and they're having all of these nervous system responses to things that are really triggering and activating for them, we get to be that grounding place. And money is definitely one of those things that causes a little bit of a freak out for people. You can't hold space for somebody else's discomfort if you are spiraling in your own. I'm going to say that again because that was really good. You cannot hold space for somebody else's discomfort if you are spiraling in your own discomfort. I have become a lot spicier in my client sessions. Even in this podcast, I've become a little bit spicier in my spaces where I am visible to people. I'm more willing to call people out. And nobody has told me that I sound bitchier. Nobody has told me that it's mean. I've never been told that it comes off as offensive or aggressive or whatever, because underneath, I know the energy of doing that, of calling people out, of calling people forward. It comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of wanting to empower people, right? And not give up their agency, not give up their choice to external circumstances. Like I want them to feel really good about the decisions that they make, about the yeses and the nos that they say. And so the more that I've shown up in this way over the last year and a half, I find that my coaching sessions are so powerful. They're so potent. My clients walk away from session like, this felt big. Right? That's when you get into the juicier stuff. When you're more willing to be bold and brave in your client sessions, you're actually setting an example for your clients. You're giving them permission to do the exact same with their clients or with their life, right? With their relationships. One of the reasons I believe so wholeheartedly in the power of coaching is because we lead by example. right? I didn't get this way without seeing my mentors do the same thing, right? Without seeing my mentors kind of embody that energy. And it gave me permission to really lean into my own bold and brave way of being as a coach. There are so many reasons why bold and brave coaching feels scary, right? Why spicy coaching feels scary, but there's also so many reasons why it works. So I want to talk about that a little bit. That fear underneath, right? That fear of being more bold, more brave, calling people out more. It's the fear underneath of being like seen as too intense, too rude, too pushy, too bossy, too aggressive. And that all stems back to childhood conditioning. Don't rock the boat. How many of us were told to be a good girl, to tone it down, to behave ourselves, right? So there's this nervous system response that automatically activates, and a lot of times we are not conscious of it, to shrink away or to collapse or to fawn when met with emotional discomfort. But what happens when you own that bold and brave coach identity, you start to create a really safe space for you and your clients to explore the truth, okay? Not just to be comfortable, but to explore the truth, even if it's a little uncomfortable, even if it's very uncomfortable. You also get to stop leaking energy trying to prove your value, and you're offering value exponentially whenever you can stay rooted in the truth and be bold and brave to call it out. Another thing is you stop making their decisions, your clients' decisions, your potential clients' decisions. You stop making their decisions mean something about you, because that is never the case usually, especially if your energy is always coming from a place of care and being heart-centered. Your clients, your potential clients, their decisions mean nothing about you as a coach. It means nothing about your ability to coach somebody powerfully. It means nothing about your capability to hold someone through a challenge or an objection. And then what actually happens is your conversion rates will go up because people trust bold leadership whenever it's loving and clear. Okay, nobody has trust and confidence in a leader that's kind of like pandering around and trying to make everybody feel good. People trust leadership that's assertive, that also is empathetic and compassionate, but very clear with boundaries and very clear with what's true, right? So bold and brave coaching isn't you pushing someone to say yes or do what you want them to do. It's really about loving them enough to tell them the truth and then trusting them to choose from there, right? We cannot control what our clients or potential clients do or don't do. We just can't control that. We're not them. We can love them extremely hard, enough to always reflect back to them the truth of what we see. We'll always be willing to be proven wrong, but reflecting back to them the truth and then trusting that they are going to do with that what best serves them. And that's really hard to let go of attachment like that as a coach, as a brand new coach. It's easier the more you practice it. It's easier the longer that you do this for. But it is difficult. It is difficult to kind of detangle yourself from your client's mess and see it from a higher vantage point. And so I want you to think about, like, where are you confusing people pleasing with compassion? Because they can seem very similar on the surface. And you can even journal about this too. I want you to think about who benefits whenever you shrink away into the people pleasy coach. Who actually benefits, right? Your ego, maybe? Who loses? The client is likely going to be the person who loses in that scenario, right? Because there's going to be a truth right in front of them that you were too afraid to call out, that they may never uncover until years from now. And if you have the courage to boldly say it right then and there, it starts a chain reaction that then ripples out into every aspect of their life from then on. So I want to also talk about, okay, how do we practice bold and brave coaching in real life? The first thing you want to do is really start small. Okay, practice with friends, practice with your partner, or even practice with yourself in the mirror, right? Ask permission to your loved ones before sharing something direct. Even with some of my closest friends, even with my husband, like I always ask permission. Of course, like they know I'm a coach, they know what kind of work I do. And so sometimes they'll roll their eyes if I ask a question, but I try to always ask permission first. Like, okay, my coach brain is thinking about this question. Would you be okay if I asked it? And it's a little bit spicy. It's a little bit, direct. You can always tell me to go fuck off if you don't want to answer it. I want to offer a reflection or something that I'm noticing. Practice that with safe people. Sometimes if I'm talking to my friends and they're going through something and they want my advice or they want my support, I'll kind of have a choose your own adventure type of question for them. So I'll ask them, do you want the comfort answer? Do you want me to make you feel better? Or do you want like the hard truth? And also just notice, right? Like you don't even have to change anything that you're currently doing, but the first step is really noticing, oh, this is when I start to spiral in my own head about making them happy or making them like me or making them not feel bad. So start to notice that and don't over explain yourself. Now, whenever it comes to sales calls, you can stay soft and compassionate and safe and loving and nurturing and still be really powerful and bold and brave, especially whenever it comes to holding people through tough decision making or holding people through objections that they might be coming up with. You can challenge people without being mean, right? So it might even be helpful to create some kind of bridge in your sales call process that transitions from like the emotional, the nurturing, the nourishing vibe to the more logistical. And that might make you feel comfortable with not over explaining yourself or not trying to convince. So an example of this, I actually talked to another client about this week, was having a bridge phrase that you use to transition from one part of the sales call into the next. So an example would be like, before we move into the numbers, before we move into like the logistics of it, is there anything else you need to feel clear on? Is there anything else coming up for you after we've talked about, likely at that point, you've talked about the transformation that they might have, the results that they might achieve, like more of the emotional stuff. And that bridge can really be an easy way for you to be able to say your price, to say the logistic stuff, and then shut up and allow them to have their own reaction to it, right? You are not a used car salesman, right? You as a transformative coach or whatever business you own that helps people, you are a portal to transformation, right? But only if you're brave enough to say what you actually mean and to say what actually matters. All right, this was a little bit of a long-winded rant. But if you are waiting for the perfect words, the right script, like the magical moment when your voice won't shake whenever you say something bold and brave on a client call or a potential client call, let this be your permission to start practicing this skill before you're ready. Right? Bold and brave coaching, spicier coaching isn't dangerous. Right? It's actually what sets you free. It's such a powerful skill to really master in order to take your coaching to the next level and give your clients so many more breakthroughs. And this is exactly the kind of identity and nervous system work that we explore inside of my 6-month mastermind, Vibrant Visibility. It's a space for really heart-centered healers, coaches, business owners to become the boldest, most grounded version of themselves in their business and in their life. And if you're one of those people that's really ready to start building more of a brand, a personal brand, a platform where you are visible all the time without feeling like you're faking it or burning yourself out, get on the wait list now. I'll leave that link in the show notes for you. And I just want to leave with this final reminder here that you don't have to choose between being kind and being powerful, being compassionate and being brave, being loving and being spicy. You don't have to choose between those two things. Those two things can exist at the same time. And your clients are actually waiting for the coach who can do both. So that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know what landed for you. I always love getting emails and messages from you guys after you listen to these episodes with insights. So feel free to send me an email, send me a message if this hit home for you. I would love to see you guys in Vibrant Visibility. So join the waitlist if this is calling to you. And I will see you next week. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If this was helpful for you, subscribe to the show to make sure you're always in the loop when a new episode is out. And I would love to invite you to join me in the free Visibility and Tech Support for Coaches community, where we hang out and chat about all things visibility, tech, systems, and heart-centered business building. I regularly share tips and tutorials and go live every now and then, and it's just nice to be in a community with other like-minded coaches and healers. So you can join this free space at alignwellco.com/community, and I can't wait to see you there.